by Brian in 2018 with this genius idea of combining the messaging and the career opportunities in the building automation systems industry with my expertise, which is entertainment. He said, how about you write a musical and choreograph it, produce it, direct it, and scale it so we're able to go to different middle schools, high schools, and colleges and present this information to students and STEM champions. And I said, that is genius. That is an opportunity that I wanted to be a part of, because not only am I able to express my passions and exercise my expertise, but I'm able to spread awareness about the career opportunities that are in this industry that will really go in and change the lives of these students and their families. And there was no way I was going to turn that opportunity down. And so here I am, Candace Haynes, Career Pathway Development Coordinator. Thank you guys for joining us. This is episode 1 of ACP's podcast. We will be releasing these very frequently, and we hope that you guys continue to join us and listen and buckle up, because it's about to be a very exciting ride with all that we have in store for you guys. ACP is a nonprofit organization. We focus on 5 different goals. My role is to provide students and STEM champions with the tools necessary to pursue a career in building automation or other related STEM careers. We believe in bringing the message to the students. What does that look like? I look at it this way. I was a student before I was in this position where I didn't have the expertise and the knowledge that I do now about the building automation industry. And so where the students are as they stand right now, we take the messaging, we take this unorthodox way of expressing the opportunities, and we give it to them in the way that we know that they will understand. So bringing the message to the students rather than pulling the students to us, we find that that's most effective in getting them to understand and recognize what it is that we're wanting to do. It's important that we cater to these younger generations to inspire them to want to know more, to want to ask questions, to say, hey, how can I get involved? Where do I need to go? These outreach efforts occur through our program called A Step in STEM. And during this podcast, what I want to do is discuss different elements of the A Step in STEM program, as well as ACP, with the rest of the team. We're going to be speaking with Lovell, who is the president of ACP, Sudeep Vyapari, who is the vice president of ACP, and then Mpho Bratton, who is the program director. I think before we begin and we get into what ACP is and what the Step in STEM program is doing, it's important for us to discuss some basics. Let's get this information down about what is BAS. BAS stands for Building Automation Systems. Building automation is the automatic centralized control of a building's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, lighting, and other systems through a building management system or building automation system. A building controlled by these systems is often referred to as a smart building or a smart home. You'll typically hear when we're talking about an industrial building, a commercial building, you'll hear the term smart building with that, and then our residential buildings, you'll more so hear the term smart home when we're describing those. We don't typically think about how our homes, other residential areas, or commercial buildings, like where we work, we don't think about how they operate and how they make our day-to-day activities as smooth as possible, unless honestly something goes wrong. When mishaps occur, we rely on a special group of skilled trade professionals to restore these systems to working order. These are our technicians and electricians. There is a huge shortage of skilled professionals and technicians in the BAS field. The Step in STEM program aims to spread awareness about the careers available in building automation. once you become a technician or professional in this field, you won't just fix the problems as they happen, but you'll also have the opportunity to decide if you want to sell, design, install, and maintain these building management systems. There's a lot of opportunity and money to be made in this career, and it's pretty exciting, but we'll save the details, or I'll allow the rest of my team to go deeper into those details. For now, I want to briefly discuss our 5 goals. So now that we know a little bit about BAS, ACP has 5 goals, some of which overlap with the A Step and STEM project, but these goals are: goal number 1, to develop a certified BAS workforce; goal 2, to increase the number of colleges offering BAS education; goal 3, to develop national awareness of BAS careers; goal 4, establish national BAS skills standards; and goal 5, establish a Department of Labor job tracking code. These goals were established due to the huge, real, and dire need of skilled talent in this industry. So now let's dive a little bit into the A Step in STEM program. A Step in STEM stands for Automation, Skills, Technology, Education, and Promotion in STEM. ACP, in partnership with the Siemens Foundation, launched this program, which is a nationwide program that aims to fill skilled positions in the building automation industry and related STEM fields. In addition, the project will provide student success grants and support services to minority students and community and technical colleges across the country. Some of our other program elements are program membership from academic institutions, K through 12, and at the collegiate level. And we also have our outreach component. Overall, what the goal is for the A Step in STEM program is to increase the flow of new talent entering into the BAS field and to promote diversity within these STEM fields, specifically in the building automation industry, by providing equitable access to educational programs and career opportunities. So, what I'd like to do is transition now into talking with my program director. We're going to get a little bit more into the details of the program, and how you all can get involved in the A Step in STEM program. So our first speaker for today is Mpho Bratton. Mpho Bratton is the program director of the Association of Controls Professionals. She oversees the coordination and administration of all aspects of the ACP STEM project. This includes overall project management, data collection and maintenance, and implementing organizational protocols. She also collaborates on the design, development, implementation, and management of other ACP programs and services. Hi, Mpho. How are you doing today? It's been a while. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today.
I'm doing well, Candace, and thank you so much for having me on your very first podcast.
Yes, first one. I forgot to celebrate that, so thank you for saying that. Mpho, I'm just going to dive in. But first, I think what we want to know is just a little bit about your background and what inspired you to join ACP.
I am a lawyer by training and profession. I specialized in corporate and commercial law, and I have done a bit of consulting work as well. In terms of what inspired me to join ACP, it was definitely the work that they were doing. My team are inspirational. I've got a great group of people on my team. I love the work that they're doing, especially with youth and trying to get them into sustainable careers for their futures.
Yes, our team is it's small in number, but our impact is great. So, tell us a little bit more. I gave a little brief intro of your bio, but I'd like to know just your day to day, what your role entails, and what your position looks like with ACP.
Sure. My role is, as you mentioned, mostly to oversee the administration and coordination of all aspects of ACP projects and programs. One of those projects is a Step in STEM, which is a national initiative that's geared towards increasing awareness about the building automation systems industry and related STEM fields, and also increasing minority participation in these fields. I also, as you said, I collaborate with my wonderful team to develop, implement, and manage ACP programs and services.
I sometimes feel that our only job with ACP is collaborating with the team. Day to day, what this looks like is me contacting Mpho with 1,000 questions and 1,000 emails, and I don't know how she's able to get any of her work done, but that's definitely a key component, the collaboration that we all four have on a day to day basis. Mpho, as program director, our third goal is to spread national awareness about BAS and STEM. And I'll pause really quickly just to let you know that before you hopped on and joined me, I gave a brief overview of all five of the goals. But with this specific question, with our third goal, spreading national awareness about BAS and STEM, how has this initiative evolved over time?
The program has evolved and it continues to evolve over time. As we learn more as a team, we adjust our strategies accordingly, but always kind of keeping our overall goal in focus. Initially, we were focused more on reaching students in high schools and institutions for higher learning and educating them about the career opportunities in this industry. But now I think that we have extended that reach to include parents, counselors, educators, and community based leaders as well, because we realize that they play a pivotal role in influencing these young minds. Uh, and in most instances, they're the students' first point of contact when they're discussing issues about their hopes, their dreams, and their career aspirations.
A lot of times people don't realize that it's so important to be flexible, especially in this industry when you're working in the education industry. We have to be flexible and understand that, we initially thought we're going to get right in there directly to the students and the information that we have, we're just going to sock it to them. They're going to get it, and things are going to progress in the direction and the way that we want them to. But you're absolutely right. As we continue to do the work, we actually started to see that the STEM champions, the students' parents, and the teachers were a very integral part in our progression and spreading awareness about the career opportunities in STEM. Um, and just a follow up question with this: what key things are you wanting to accomplish with your Step in STEM program in the near future and long term goals?
I think, in terms of what I want to accomplish, or what we as ACP want to accomplish, better yet, is to create more awareness, increase knowledge, and also specifically increase inclusivity. I want not only the students, but also people from all walks of life to know about the building automation systems industry and the career opportunities that are available in it. I also think it's important to change the existing perceptions that there are about building automation systems and it being a blue collar job, uh, which it's not.
Right.
And yeah, and definitely people also have this perception that BAS is predominantly just for white males, and that's also not true.
Hmm.
The industry is very inclusive and wants to include even more students of color and minorities to participate in this field.
I think that's major. We talk, this is again one of our conversations that we discuss every single day is how can we get the truth out in the messaging of what the career opportunity actually looks like. I definitely, before I became CPDC, I was one of those people who didn't recognize and understand truly what opportunities there were within the industry. I definitely didn't see myself. I didn't see that I could have an opportunity or there would be a possibility for me to have a career in this field or someone that looked like me. I didn't think that, building automation even had anything necessarily to do with STEM. And when I think about the things that I thought about, I'm like, my goodness, let's think about how our audiences may be currently thinking and how much we have to go into these audiences and really attack and correct that line of thinking. How have we adapted our message also post COVID-19?
As I mentioned, Candace, initially we're just targeting high school students, in particular female and minority students, but we've extended that reach to include, as I mentioned, parents, counselors, educators, community leaders. And basically, COVID has forced everyone to rethink the way in which we work.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, as ACP, by no means immune to its effects, and we can all agree. And
Mm-hmm.
we quickly realized as an organization that we needed to be doing more in the digital space. Hence, our need to increase our presence on digital platforms. And really, it's also about meeting students where they are,
Yes.
which means not only in person at their schools, but also through digital means and media. So, social media and podcasts like this very one are just some of the ways in which we've extended our reach and kind of adjusted and shifted the way we think about outreach.
We started out on fire. When I say we were on fire, we were scheduling these events and going into various schools, or actually having these events scheduled, prepared for us to go into these schools and work one on one in person with these students. And so now, post COVID, students have been out. I'm sorry, schools have been closed, and that's forced us to do exactly what you said. We had to rethink the way that we're going to present this message to our students. And hopefully, we are able to get back into it and be able to begin our in person outreach efforts. Can you tell us more about the purpose behind creating the Student Success Program, the details about the program, and how the students can apply for assistance?
Yes, so we all know that student persistence to graduation is a recognized problem, more so in our technical and community colleges across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Students are essentially struggling to find access to resources that they need in order to complete their studies. And this is exactly where the Student Success Grant Program comes into focus. It provides these students who need that little extra push
Mm-hmm.
or little bit of assistance with the financial resources they need in order to complete their studies. And essentially, the program provides assistance with micro grants for tuition, purchasing of student supplies, trainers, books, and also with tutoring and mentoring assist support. So the grant is available to students in some of our partnering technical and community college, primarily through the school's financial aid department. So students will have to apply through the financial aid department. And if they're eligible based on the criteria, they can be awarded up to $1,000 per semester, depending on the need of the student.
There's opportunities within ACP, but also to research what technical colleges that also have current programs similar to our student success programs that they could also sign up for and potentially receive assistance. I want to go a little bit deeper into the student success program. Um, you mentioned something along the lines of when we were initially drafting what this program looked like for ACP. We were discussing the issues of um, a student seeing a student graduate. Can we go deeper into the purpose behind the difference, I guess, what separates ACP Student Success Program, and how students are able to not just apply one time, but if they need assistance, they're able to consistently apply until to see them through graduation, and the importance of that.
Yes, this is the paramount point of, and the pivotal point about the Student Success Grant Program. It's not just about a blanket one time um, means of assistance for the student to help them get through one semester. We understand that students have varying challenges over the semesters and may have one need that doesn't necessarily exist in the next semester. So students are able to reapply for following semesters for this aid, because that's the purpose of it. And the distinction between ACP Student Success Grant and other grant funding is that we want to ensure that we carry them across that finish line. And in order to do so, we have to be able to recognize the needs of these students as they continue through their studies. So we're more focused on making sure 1, 2, 5 of those students get through the program than providing funding to 100 students and not seeing any get through the program, because we haven't addressed the real need or the concern of the student. So we're particularly interested in focusing on what the students actually need and supporting them in that way.
Exactly, because the purpose of the Step STEM program is to continue to feed the pipeline. We want to increase the workflow, increase the talent increase the talent workflow into the building automation systems industry. And so that's such a key component to me, and that's what makes this program stand out the most. Um, ACP coined the term STEM champions, uh, who again we mentioned earlier. These STEM champions sometimes are the first to hear about programs like the student success programs, who then assist us, again, ACP assists ACP in pushing that message to the students. So ACP, we coined this term, which includes teachers, guidance counselors, educational institutions, community leaders, various stakeholders, employers, and anyone else who's on fire for STEM. Mpho, why is it important to become a STEM champion, and what ways can STEM champions get involved and help us further promote the Step in STEM program?
STEM champions are very important to our cause, primarily because they help us to spread this awareness that we so greatly need within industry and schools. And they are an extension essentially of this program and its goals and its objectives. And we need them to buy into the program. We need them to be able to extend this message to their students. And they are essentially our voices and our advocates in creating awareness about these opportunities. And in terms of how they can assist us, well, definitely through researching and educating themselves about the BAS industries and the career opportunities that are available in these fields. They can assist by engaging these students in a meaningful and impactful way, so that they understand these opportunities for what they are and for what they can do for their lives. We also need them to advise the students.
Yes.
So this is very important. And this is where the guidance comes into play. They're there to advise these students about the career opportunities that are available that these students might not have been aware of, and how to enter into these fields. And they work with ACP in order to provide that component of advice and also preparing them. Essentially, we want them to prepare them with the tools and the resources they need in order to start their future careers in building automation systems industry and related STEM fields.
That, I think, one of the key things that you said, because everything that you said is important, but the key thing that I really want our listeners, our STEM champions, to really take away is that we have to educate ourselves. It starts there. We don't have a message. We're not able to advise our students if we ourselves are not getting the information that we need, the accurate information that we need. And what does that look like? That looks like listening and tuning into our podcasts. We'll be having lots of information and special guests, on top of having our team members, again, Mpho, our vice president, coming in and giving us more information. So you listen to the podcast, you visit our acp21.org website and educate yourselves about what is BAS, as we described a little bit earlier on this podcast, and what that looks like for your individual life. So thank you, Mpho, for saying that. That to me is one of the key components. Educate yourselves, really understand what that messaging looks like. I know that you are jam-packed daily with so much work. You'll definitely be getting some more emails and phone calls from you later on today.
And I look forward to them. And I'm grateful for you having me on your very first podcast. And a huge thank you to the listeners as well.
Thank you so much, Mpho. We will talk soon, and we look forward to having you back on one of our later episodes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. So next we are going to talk to my vice president, Dr. Sudeep Vyapari. who is an innovative and results-focused executive with remarkable history as a leader, educator, researcher, analyst, and productive manager with deep experience contributing to academia and nonprofit organizations. He serves as Executive Vice President of ACP, leading efforts to prepare a 21st century ready building automation workforce. Hello, Sudeep. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you very much for inviting me, Candace. It's great to see you. I know with the COVID and whatnot, we haven't been able to meet in person for a long time.
Yes.
So it's great to see you here through the Zoom. And I really appreciate your inviting me for this podcast. And thank you for that kind invitation.
Oh, no problem, Sudeep. I'm looking forward to the discussions we're about to have. I'm just going to jump right on in. I wanted to know, Sudeep, can you tell us about when you joined ACP a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. And so I joined ACP on April 1st, 2016, when Brian Lovell was in the process of launching this nonprofit organization. And I believe that about a year or two prior to 2016, he had already gone ahead and founded the organization or the nonprofit ACP. And then he had a chance to interview me during the position, and my background that I brought to ACP is really a mixed bag of some varied sort of skill sets and talents that I brought to the foray here, so to speak. Because by training and education, I'm in the sector of energy and environmental sciences and sustainability. In terms of what I did for about 20 years, that is almost since 1989 to about 2009, I was part of academia, be that it was at the universities such as Texas State University Systems and/or University of Florida, fairly large universities, or a pretty phenomenal community college system in Hillsborough Community College with 49,000 students enrollment in Tampa, Florida. And so when Brian interviewed me for the position, the key factors, I guess the key sort of considerations on his mind, as well as what I was bringing to ACP, was this diversity of experience of understanding how the academia at the 4-year and graduate level works, as well as the community college level. So my background training that from that perspective for about 20 years, till 2009, that is, was in academia. But I also want to add another experience, which was my experience with the nonprofit organization called National Council for Science and Environment, NCSC, based in Washington, D.C. I had begun consulting with them since 2010, and by about 2013, I moved up here to Washington, D.C., where I am, and as the Associate Executive Director there. My primary responsibilities were to work with about 220 plus universities and colleges, including about 35 of those were community colleges. And also, I've worked with about 12 to 14 federal agencies, such as NSF and NOAA and USDA. And then I have had a chance for as long as I was with the NCSC to also work with the members of both the US House and the Senate in terms of moving the science issues, bringing it to their attention, such as the need for enhancing STEM education and the importance of STEM education, that how it benefits our students. And all of these were critical issues that we brought to the attention of our elected officials up here in the Washington, D.C.
It seems like with your background, you're just right aligned with the work that ACP does. Can you give us a little bit more of what inspired you to join ACP?
Absolutely. So from the standpoint of the actual building automation, my background is not in the engineering sector. I had very little, if any, understanding of the actual building automation systems.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So I had to do my own homework
Yes.
that
Very
I
much
mean,
so.
absolutely one of the questions on my mind when Brian was in conversation with me about this organization and uh, evaluating my interests. One of the questions that I had to ask myself is, what would I do, and how does this serve my passion?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to that passion, I just want to quickly share a story that while I am technically not uh, I do not have experiences or education and training in the building automation sector. As the executive director of the Hillsborough Community College, from about 2007 to for as long as I was with the college, I was in charge of and leading the efforts to measure the carbon footprint of the college. And now we do the carbon footprint calculator because each academic institution in the last 10, 20 years has prepared its own climate action plan. That you have to understand what are the ways in which you can mitigate the carbon that's generated because of the use of energy at your facilities. And one outstanding experience there that had already introduced me to the building automation, or HVACR as we call, is that when I began the process of measuring and calculating the carbon footprint of the Hillsborough Community Colleges with 11 different facilities, 5 facility managers, I was overseeing and leading an effort to measure the carbon footprint uh, of that institution over a 1.7 million square footage area. It's a fairly significant area, and there was a lot to learn in terms of how do you calculate those numbers. And then importantly, you just don't arrive at the emission numbers, but you have to figure out how do you go about and communicate with the facilities manager in making them understand how we can reduce the energy consumption and use. And to give you an example in terms of the energy in this particular field, that when you go look up the Energy Information Administration website, US government's website, you will realize that 48%, that's 48% of the energy that's consumed by the residential and commercial buildings, um, uh, the energy that is consumed is by the residential and commercial buildings in the United States. That's significant. We're talking
That
nearly
is.
half as much. And the second component is nearly 40%, that's 40% of the carbon emissions in the United States are generated because of the consumption of the heating, cooling, and even heating of water. So that's that was that big piece of puzzle. So
Yes.
you asked me about inspiration, what inspired me. It was fairly simple that this was a huge issue in my mind. And I was looking at an opportunity here through ACP, which was carving out this very unique model in which uh, ACP's mission was all about helping, in some ways, mitigate these issues of carbon footprints and the carbon offsets. And to do that, the methodology, the mission, the goals were all about educate our folks in
Yes.
the academia, in the industry, among the businesses, promote this, uh, promote the theme of why BAS is a STEM-based career and how it
Yes.
helps in all these areas.
And Sudeep, you're very passionate. I can feel your passion. I see it and I love it. You know, I'm all about energy. I feel like our passions are the messages that we present, that we push, and or that we project, all those P words. And one of those passions that you mentioned is the need for enhancing STEM education. I want us to talk a little bit more about what other important messages do you believe ACP must continue to promote, and how are you communicating these messages? How are we, ACP? How is ACP and A Step in STEM promoting these messages to our audiences?
Well, the answer to that question is very simple. And in terms of the messaging, which to me is also about storytelling, we have to recognize who our uh, stakeholders are. And ACP serves a diversity of group of people. We are not just sharing our story with academia, but we are equally passionate about sharing our message, our story with industry, with
Yes.
businesses, be that they may be small or mid-sized businesses. And importantly, we want to share it with the students themselves, with the parents, with the counselors, who
Yeah.
ultimately influence the minds of the young folks on
Yes.
the type of career pathways they are going to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key messages, that number one message that I want to promote is, I think a lot of parents, a lot of students care about that they want to find gainful employment, whether it is after their GED, going through a WOTEC, technical education process, community college education, and or even 4-year or graduate college. Ultimately, what do they want? Gainful employment in the jobs market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two, from that perspective, to address that issue, one of the points, one of the stories that I share with everybody that asks me, so what does ACP do and what are your goals? I say, number one, we're trying to promote that the building automation systems jobs are high wage, high salary jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And the second point about these jobs is that there is an abundance of these jobs. In fact, as a matter of fact, that I've been conducting a research since August of 2017. And as of last year, uh, I noted that on an average in the United States, there were as many as 25,000, this is average number, as many as 25,000 vacancies on a daily basis. So
That's a lot.
that's a lot. There
Yeah,
are
that's
lots of
what
opportunity.
we need to fill those. Exactly. That's a lot of opportunity
You,
there.
absolutely. And they're also at all the levels, meaning entry level, mid level, senior level jobs. So that's point number one.
Mm-hmm.
The second point that I'm excited about, which I promote, is that the careers, the opportunities, and the overall, the workforce that's engaged in today's BAS field works with the tools and the technology that are of the 21st century. What I mean by that is there is a heavy integration of the IoT, which is Internet of Things, and we have a specific area we call BIoT, Building Internet of Things. And this particular point is so important because those, particularly the millennials like yourself, Candace,
Mm-hmm.
who are far more adept and very comfortable with the tools of the technology, such as mobile phone. The
Yes.
great news is that today's residential or even commercial buildings, they can be fully controlled by simply an app on your mobile phone. How
Exactly.
incredible is that?
Yes.
You talk about through the STEM, particularly uh, in this context, about what does a step in STEM have to do with what we do through ACP. Let me tell you that robotics and the automation is a huge part of what the building automation does. So those students that are very passionate about pursuing careers based upon STEM, guess what? Building automation is for them as well. So that's a very key point, that technology is a huge part of what we do in terms of promoting what we do. The last part, that sort of a messaging that I tend to promote, also is very important. That I think fundamentally, and this goes back to what I said previously, fundamentally, that parents and students and the counselors at the high school, sometimes they may or may not be fully aware of the scope of this field,
Yes.
and or some perceptions that have prevailed in the past that this is not necessarily maybe a high-tech job. That particular perception we are clearing up. We are trying to bring to the attention of everybody, working with them, educating them that no, this is a really great career and it pays well. So those are the three key messages that I tend to kind of usually promote most in my conversations.
That's important, Sudeep, to really emphasize that in the BAS industry, in the job market, you mentioned you enter into this market and you work with tools and technology in the 21st century. And that goes along with ACP's slogan. I wanted to know What is the need for preparing a skilled BAS workforce for 21st century jobs? Can you tell us its significance and importance to our work, what we do with ACP and a step in STEM?
That's an excellent question. Let me address that question. So when you think about the 21st century, there are two elements that pop up in pretty much most people's mind, right? Number one is this century is defined by technology
Yes.
that really guides and dictates the lives that we lead these days. The second is the big data, that everything that the technology essentially does is based upon the processing of the data. So if you put these two elements together, the big data and the technology, those two characteristics of the 21st century are also transforming a number of educational programs that in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s also, the educational system was far more siloed. Today, what is happening is the differences between so many disciplines are sort of going away. And building automation is one of those sectors, to give you an idea why these jobs are of 21st century. It's because today's building automation system requires an equal participation by someone that understands the actual engineering, the mechanical engineering part of that, electrical engineering part of that. But we also now have key players, several of the even doctoral programs that are engaged in sophisticated software writing for these building automation systems. We still need those folks that actually physically go and monitor the controls. They are working with the controls, to make sure that the management of the building is done in such a way that we are able to have all these buildings working with the most optimal conditions.
And Sudeep, we're not discussing that enough in the educational systems. We're not discussing these opportunities and need, this workflow, this need of these positions, these current positions that are vacant. We're just not having those conversations, and I feel that that's one thing that the educational system is in need of. But I was wondering, from your perspective, what do you see are the most urgent needs specifically in the U.S. educational system, and how can a step in STEM aid in providing some of these solutions?
So in terms of the critical need of that, there are two things to keep in mind that what the industry is looking for. I mean, you are absolutely right in terms of the abundance of jobs and also the quality of jobs. Those two messages must be promoted. But
Yes.
alongside, from the standpoint of, to go back to your question, that most educational systems already have several of the good programs in place, that they do a fairly good job of creating a curriculum, sometimes modifying, improving, and building upon that curriculum can take a little bit of a longer time period because of bureaucracy, because of the regulations, because
Yes.
of what needs to happen at the collegiate level. Now, the intentionality of the folks that are working at the academia is very honorable, that they want to make sure that all of their curriculum matches with the needs of what the industry is looking for or is seeking, right? But if I were to look on the other side of this bridge, because at one end of the bridge is your academia, the other end of the bridge, if you think about it, are the industry folks who are willing to hire, folks into these.
Right, they're ready now.
They're ready to accept and invite people into workforce. The one issue that they continually bring is the issue of that, are these folks that are graduating from the schools and colleges, do they have the right type of technical skills and soft skills? Mm-hmm. Those two are very important, because it's one thing to earn a diploma, learn that everything you learned in the college, but you must understand how to apply it. And that application requires that you have that required training, the required understanding of both, again, I repeat, technical skills as well as soft skills. Two quick examples I'll give you. One is in terms of the technical skills. During one of the researches that I conducted, and I had an opportunity to interview a focus group, and all the folks that in that particular group agreed that most of what is happening now in the building automation system requires at least some degree of understanding of programming, even for entry-level jobs. Similarly, they also emphasize that why communications continue, which is a soft skill, why communications continue to be a skill that's most desired. And it's not that people did not know how to communicate in the past. It's just that today's communication technology is different. So how do you build upon that process of improving the communication? So to answer your question in terms of what ACP is doing, now going back to that we are that bridge that's bringing the academia and that the industry that's willing and hoping and ready to hire those folks. We're bridging that gap through the programs such as a Step in STEM. You are really propagating, disseminating this message that, hey, your educational systems are preparing you with these skill, with this curriculum. The people are ready to hire you, but here through ACP's different goals and programs and activities, we want to make sure that you earn those right type of skill set certifications and you're ready for the market.
Thank you for that, Sudeep. With that being ACP and a Step in STEM's goal, things have just changed since COVID-19, just worldwide, just with the economy in general. And I'm curious to know, pre-COVID-19, there was a high demand for employers to hire technically trained technicians in the BAS industry and related fields. Has this demand decreased post-COVID-19? And what advice can we give students about pursuing a career in this field with all that's going on with COVID?
So the answer is really simple to this question, that I think the impact of the COVID on building automation industry, which as a matter of fact, we do see the numbers have dipped down. And I want to again just go back to what I said, that I've been conducting a systematic research of the marketplace opportunities since August of 2017. So I have an understanding almost for 3 years. Those numbers were higher up until about the end of March this year. So okay. I think that the impact is only temporary and that we will see that these jobs will continue to grow. And here is why. And this is a key message that I want to drive, that the markets, the economic scenario, the projections, the predictions about the building automation system as an industry, that is an upswing. And we are not just talking about right here in the United States, we are also talking about all over the globe, because even those countries that typically never had their homes and or commercial buildings heated or cooled are now all, sort of opting to have air conditioners at their homes and or large systems of ventilation and heating or cooling at their, particularly the cooling, given the global warming. Nobody wants to stay in a hot building.
No. Even when it's cold.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when we look at this global trend, that one factor sort of helps make sure that this market is thriving. There is another element I'm going to quickly cover, which is that the times that we are living in, the issue of building automation is not just an issue of providing comfort to the occupants of the building. Mm-hmm. That how you feel, in a certain building, if it is cool or warm, that's one part of it, important part of it. But there's also another major concern that almost all nations now look at building automation as a national security issue. Mm. Because think about it, this is not about just who is entering building and who's exiting building, but that balance between the amount of oxygen versus carbon dioxide could be a security issue. And so it's no wonder that by 2027, it is expected that globally, nearly about 170 to 180 billion, that's like bumblebee billion dollars worth of money will be spent on just the security of the building.
Wow.
And that's a huge issue. So if you put all of this together, in summary, what I'm trying to say is that COVID is more or less temporary. The job opportunities for all groups of folks that wish to pursue a STEM-based careers, they can find that they may begin in a career pathway into one field of expertise, but they will find that as they look towards the building automation, they will only notice a growth and an upswing. So I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen with this field.
Well, you all heard it first from Dr. Sudeep Vyapari. He has said that we are on an upswing. This is temporary. You all should still do your homework and research this industry. There's just vast opportunity. Sudeep, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I hope that you just remain safe, and I look forward to having you on more of our future episodes.
Thank you very much, Candace, for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And as we say, upwards and onwards.
Upwards and onwards. Yay!
Yay!
Have a good day, Sudeep. I'll talk with you later.
You as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. Bye. Sudeep said some very important things. Just to recap, he mentioned that messaging is the art of storytelling. It's important for us to know our audience, and not just know your audience, but strategically package your short-term and your long-term goals and your strategies together, so that when you are speaking to that targeted audience, you have a very strategic plan in how you're getting that message across to your audience. Okay, guys, so last but not least, we have the president of ACP, Lovell. How are you doing all the way in Boston?
Doing great. Great weather here, nice and sunny. I've got my guys up here, and we're building labs today in Boston.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about that. You guys are going to have lots of fun stories. Brian, I'm just going to jump into this. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio and then begin asking you the questions. Brian, as a former building controls contractor in the Atlanta area, he experienced firsthand the difficulty in assessing, acquiring, and retaining high-quality building automation technicians. He decided to do something about it, and in 2007 joined with the Technical College Systems of Georgia and leading automation companies to develop the nation's first associate's degree in building automation. The products of that work have been made available to technical colleges around the country since 2012 through National Science Foundation funding, resulting in dozens of new training programs and creating strong demand for non-proprietary industry certifications. Brian, what inspired you to create ACP, and can you give me a little summary about the history of the organization?
Yeah, ACP started, it was a natural progression out of the work that we had done since establishing the program in 2007 at Georgia Piedmont Technical College. So as a former building automation contractor for my entire professional career, I witnessed firsthand the difficulty in sourcing talent and hiring people from programs, because there really were no programs of study to prepare somebody for the field. So when I sold that business, I knew that there was a demand for technical training surrounding building automation systems. And that's when, as you said, in 2007, we set up the first program in the United States in the Technical College System of Georgia at GPTC, Georgia Piedmont Technical College. Subsequent to that, after that program took off and really gained wide attention in the Atlanta area and then nationally because of its uniqueness, the National Science Foundation funded us and two other partner colleges to disseminate the content of that program around the United States. And we've done that since 2012. And in doing that, what started with one college then became 10 colleges, 20 colleges, now almost 100 colleges around the United States that offer either wholly or partly content of that program, which started at GPTC. Along the way, about 5 years ago, we saw the need to establish national skills standards that all the colleges could align to around the country. So to answer your question succinctly, what started ACP was a natural progression of steps in developing programs, disseminating programs around the country, and then aligning programs to a common set of skill standards. That's what ACP does. ACP, with subject matter experts from around the country, established the standards for training in building automation systems technician profession.
Thank you, Brian, for that summary. And now we are at an all-time high job and unemployment rate. That need is needed more than ever in the U.S. And there are thousands of trade jobs, which are also called blue-collar work jobs, available especially for young people. When we hear the word trade jobs, it's I would say it's a turnoff, or people are afraid of it, or I'm actually not quite sure what it is, but there's a negative connotation to a negative reaction. Then you find these young students, they begin to learn that they would have to go through a series of STEM training in order to do the trade job, because lots of people don't understand that these trade jobs are STEM careers. Could you talk a little bit about that? Why does this happen, and how does the A Step in STEM program, ACP, and the A Step in STEM program work to change this perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, we're all subject to what we hear from the time we're young. We're exposed to ideas and connotations of words. And I know from my own personal journey, I was always taught from middle school on through high school and then college that, hey, you've got potential. You should go to university. You should get a 4-year degree. You're smart, you know.
Yep.
And then the converse of that is it leaves the impression that if you're not smart or you don't have potential, you go get a skill or get a trade. And that perspective is 180 degrees out of line. The technical trades, the term trades, as you say, has gotten that poor connotation because it's always been considered a pathway, unfortunately, for those who couldn't or shouldn't go to university. And the fact of the matter is, trade jobs, skill-based jobs today are in higher demand than ever before. And people coming out of trade school, and I don't even like to call it trade school, or vocational school because of those connotations. Basically,
Right.
people coming out of college who are trained in these disciplines are making a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. I can tell you firsthand, students I've had who've gone out and started in either HVAC or specialty controls, anything related to technical, even plumbing, electricians, you name it. They start their own company, and I can't tell you how many have become millionaires in a few short years because they have skills that the world needs and people need and that can't be outsourced. You can't outsource somebody coming out and fixing a leak in your home. You can't outsource facilities management or somebody taking a look at a large campus building and trying to make changes to make it more efficient. Those jobs have to be done on site, in person, by people who are trained up in those fields. Those jobs will never go away. And so there needs to be a huge change in perspective, especially among young people and counselors and parents at the high school level. So that was the onus for A Step in STEM, because how do you reach young people and make them change their perception of something that they've heard since they were young? You know, you get out there with other young people who are close to their age, who can first excite them and get them interested in something that they like music, digital technology, performance, song, dance, you name it. You gain their attention first, and then you push the message through people who are closer to it than folks like me with
Oh, Brian,
in
stop.
their
You're pretty
50s,
close to
right?
it.
So we want people who look like you, who are young and, in the prime of life and close to not far out of college or training and just getting into your careers.
They want a
They'll
little more relatability.
absolutely. So that's the reason for A Step in STEM. You've got to make that connection first before you can change minds and perceptions, which take a good bit of work. I mean, it's not easy to change those perceptions. However, I think that having seen the performances of a step and stem firsthand, it's so effective in carrying the message, gaining the attention, and then pushing that message out to young people and teachers and counselors as well.
Right. And Brian, you made a good point. I was not aware of how much an HVAC technician made. I recently read an article that lists the 12 highest paying trade jobs. And these jobs are listed on Indeed and I'm sure other job site locations. But some of them are licensed practical nurses. They make $25 an hour. HVAC technicians were number 2. They make between $23 to $24 per hour. And the list kind of goes on. We have home inspectors, plumbers are number 4 on that list, make $24 to $25 an hour. Electricians, construction managers. And then I continued down the list. These aren't necessarily in any particular order, but then I continued down the list and I saw dental hygienists, ultrasonographer, radiation therapist, network architect, and some others. I was curious because I then started checking myself. I then started saying to myself, I kind of respect some of the careers on this list more than I do others, or not now, but before I was in this position, I had even this negative connotation, this perspective on these different trade jobs. And so I'm wondering, I want to know your perspective. Do you believe that there's even a level of segregation among the trade jobs themselves?
Of course, yeah, of course. Let's just relate that down to common experience, right? We
Yes.
all have called a plumber before. We've all had a leak in our home and we
I
called a plumber.
actually.
At the end of that job, do you remember feeling like, wow, I didn't know it was going to cost that much? Or did you feel like, ooh, that's a lot of money, you
Yes.
know, for 4 hours of work, $1,500 bill? Think about that when you call an HVAC technician just in your home in a residential environment, and they say you need a new HVAC unit. It's going to cost you $8, $9, $10,000 for one unit, and that's about 1 day's of work to change that out. Think about that for a minute, or even a roofer, or you name it. Folks who are in those fields are doing very, very well, and it doesn't. What I like about that field, it doesn't. Those fields, it does not take 4 years of education. Now, I'm not against university education. I have a master's, almost have a doctorate now that I'm working on. I also have 2 technical degrees, and the reason is I can leverage those technical skills, pair them up with writing skills, presentation skills, other skills, and then have something that's somewhat unique. And I use that a lot when I was a contractor. So it's not an either or proposition, but it is a great place to start and get rolling, and then a scaffolding on which you can add more degrees, more education. So it's I think that like you said, the perception is very interesting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you do a gradation of those fields, and I know where you're going with that. You say, oh, well, a registered nurse or let's say a respiratory therapist, it takes more
Right.
education. They're maybe, perceived as being higher on the ladder. I don't view things that way anymore. Let me
Mm-hmm.
just relate one more story to you. When I was a controls contractor, I had a number of projects, data centers, you name it, hospitals. We did critical environment work. We also did a lot of schools, et cetera, et cetera. But it was very interesting when I take my guys into data centers or high-end facilities, and you'd have all these what we called suits. Get on an elevator, and there'd be guys, middle managers who probably were doing well, but probably not as well as some of the engineers and top technicians that I had at the time who were making 6 figures. And yet they would immediately be perceived because they weren't dressed the same way as
Right.
lesser than, and we'd
Yes.
always giggle about that because we'd say that we just talk amongst ourselves and say, hey, if they only knew what they didn't know, they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be, looking down the end of their nose at people who weren't dressed up in a suit. So it goes back to perception. It's
Yeah.
so powerful. Perception drives, unfortunately, reality for a lot of people. And the perception of technical skills and trades is completely wrong. Never been a better time to be a technician than today.
That's a nice quote. I'll quote you on that a little later. I might just steal it. I won't tell them where I got it from.
Go ahead.
But what I've concluded, Brian, is that I'm in the wrong line of work. This interview is over. I will see you later. I'm going to become an
Oh no! Hey,
technician.
you're employing technical skills right now, so
That's true.
there you go. You're in the trades. You're in a vocation right now.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Thank you for that, Brian. That's something that's an important discussion that we have to continue to press upon our youth. Honestly, I feel like that's where it will truly begin to change. Brian, my next question, can you expand upon the certifications that ACP is preparing to release to the public? By completing these certifications, how will that impact the industry, the students, and the communities nationwide?
Yeah, we just touched on that in the first question, but the
Mm-hmm.
certification to me zips up or connects all the dots, right? So for the longest time, employers have not known where to go or where to source building automation systems technicians. And that's the first certification we're announcing, the Building Automation System Technician certification. So that technician is geared, or that certification is geared towards individuals who are coming out of a 2-year equivalent program in a vocational or trade school or whatever you want to call it, community college. And so if they've had 2 years of instruction, which could be condensed, by the way, into boot camp style instruction that takes 6 months, or it could take 2 years, but it just to kind of equate it against university education, that typically is 2 years worth of contact hours that somebody has to go through to sit for the certification. Or somebody could be in the field, having worked for 3 or 4 years in the field, and also qualify to sit for the certification. The certification, though, is geared towards an entry-level individual. And the reason it connects all the dots is in the past, employers have not known truly what the skill sets are of individuals that they hire out of programs like HVAC or electrical or programming or IT or whatever. Does that individual have the combination of skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities that align with the needs in the controls industry? This has been a very tough nut to crack, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This certification finally does that. This certification puts a line in the sand and said, these are the skills which subject matter experts around the United States have said and have been vetted in saying and re-vetted and ad infinitum. These are the skills that people are saying in the field need to be there if they're going to hire somebody out of a technical school, right? And it also, on the other side, for technical schools or community colleges who are training individuals, or even, for that matter, even new hires in the field who have no experience and are being trained up, it gives them a benchmark for that training. So this is the benchmark. This is what they should know. These are the areas of competency they should have to this level, right? So it gives you that understanding. It zips up the, I like to say, it kind of zips up the two. It zips up the training side and it zips up the hiring side and brings them together. So there's a common set of expectations on both sides and an understanding of, by the student themselves, what it's going to take to reach those competencies. That's what the certification is intended and in fact does do.
What are the benefits in pursuing a career in BAS, and what advice can you give our listeners, particularly students, particularly people are listening and they're saying, I'm not really sure what I want to do with my life, but I'm hearing that this is an opportunity for me to have a better opportunity in life for myself. What advice can you give those listeners?
Yeah, first off, I would position building automation systems kind of as a centerpiece of technical skills right now. You know, with the IT revolution, so many industries were changed. Industries that never had computers before Now you have to have competency dealing with computers and software platforms, et cetera, in just about any field. You know, even technicians who in the past could go pull wire, make terminations, you know, take care of plumbing problems, you know, or whatever. You'd be hard pressed to find any technician today who doesn't use a computer and doesn't have to fill out service tickets, you know, in a digital manner.
Right.
And certainly anything electrical or controls is just replete with skills that are needed on the IT side, programming side, networking side, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing I would say to somebody who's interested in building automation or any related field to building automation is, number one, a lot, especially young people, typically do not know what they want to do yet. They are
Yes.
kind of looking for different opportunities. BAS can be thought of as, building automation systems can be thought of as the brains or central nervous system of any facility these days.
Hmm.
So in that facility, you have energy that's being consumed. You have comfort conditions that need to be maintained. If you're in a critical environment, you have special conditions, even like production environment. You have clean rooms that have particular needs. Those all have to be maintained and monitored. You have security systems that have to be monitored 24/7. You have renewable systems, solar and wind technologies that are controlled and monitored by automation systems. So it puts building automation in the as a centerpiece of skill sets that can be used in so many different fields. So even if you're not going to wind up in the building automation field itself, think about how preparing for that industry prepares you for a number of different fields, because you have to learn programming, you have to
Right.
learn something about data analytics and trend logs and finding problems, troubleshooting. You have to learn about electrical systems, mechanical systems. You have to learn about integration. So all those skills are so commonly needed in
Mhm.
in different areas today. So what I like to tell young people in particular who are looking for a field, hey, you won't lose if you pursue building automation, because it opens the world to you uh, in countless other ways, in countless other fields. If they are sure they want to go down the route of building automation, then I suggest that they define a pathway within the industry itself. Do you want to be a technician out in the field? Do
Mhm.
you want to be a manager? In which case you would get the technical skills, but then you want to add some management and business training on top of that. Do you want to be a salesman or saleswoman? Do you want to own your own company? You know, there's so many ways you can leverage the building automation field. Do you want to do set up, be a startup technician, or set up graphics and set up commissioning tables for projects? You know, what do you want to do?
Right.
There's so many things you can do in the automation field itself. But I think that the thing that gains the most traction with people is understanding that this is the centerpiece industry for the Internet of Things. We all hear about the Internet of Things. Anything in the real world which can be measured, temperature, pressure, energy, power, renewables, you know, you name it, security, anything is tied to or can be tied to a building automation system, right? So it truly is the Internet of Things, accessible
Mhm.
from any device that has internet access and password access. So that's what I like to tell young people. It excites them when you tell them that, hey, you're not going to waste your time, and you're
Right.
right on the cutting edge of the Internet of Things revolution, so to speak.
Yeah, because I think young people now are just thinking about, well, what can I do that, as you mentioned, that's not going to make me feel like I'm wasting my time, and something that I feel like I could do for a long time. We just live in this world where I feel that young people look at social media and they want things so quickly, and they want to pass by things so quickly as well. And I think of this industry as like the candy shop. you go in there and you can just select whatever you want. If you get bored with something, we'll move on to the next, but you're still within the industry. So I think this is this is definitely a good industry if you're kind of a millennial and you're wanting to dibble dabble into a plethora of things. But Brian, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you one more question. Please tell us about one of your best experiences with your STEP in STEM program. How did the students and the STEM champions react?
Yeah, every Step in STEM, first of all, which I've been to, has been fabulous, a fabulous event. So it's just, that's what it's designed to be, right? And you bring the energy, your team and the performers bring the energy. Everyone has been spectacular. I think the one that's most memorable when I think about a Step in STEM is the Drew Charter High School Step in STEM show when everybody was up on the stage. You had the juniors and seniors, you know, to a fever pitch, and then I came up to speak along with Mr. Kroom, who's an instructor at one of the BAS programs in Atlanta, and the students were ready. They were absolutely ready to engage in question and answer and back and forth and a little bit of fun. It was just everything that we thought it could be in the beginning, in opening their minds and their ears, and then it was there, tangible, right in front of you, and you could see that it works. That's the first time that I knew I had evidence firsthand, and I could see and feel that this works. Every other one that I've been to, I kind of like was on the side seeing that, hey, it looks like it's working. But then when you engage with people and you communicate with people and you get that energy back and forth, you have a better appreciation of where their heads are at. There's no way that I could go into an auditorium, or I would doubt if even Mr. Kroom is an instructor who's a bit younger than I am, or many professionals really could go in dry without the students being ready and excited and think that we're going to keep them, number one, keep them awake. Number two, that they're going to listen to anything that we have to say. You know, it's just not going to happen. So to me, Drew Charter High School, that having all the kids in the auditorium, having them ready, excited about their future.
Yes.
That was perfect. And that was my favorite Step in STEM event because of that reason. And kudos to you. It was just amazing watching how you and your team get the students to that point. You know, as an educator, one thing I learned, when I became an educator, I knew nothing about teaching. And then after getting into it and having the experience for, I guess I taught either part-time or full-time for, a dozen, 15 years. Either part-time in the evenings, even when I had my contracting business, I would volunteer because I was trying to help the students. I was also trying to find more employees. And then doing it full-time for almost 6 years. But I never had any training about teaching. But here's the thing, Candace, when you become a teacher, one thing becomes abundantly clear. You have to engage the heart, kind of the emotional side first before any learning takes place whatsoever. You have to get them to that point. We call it in education a hook. You got to hook them first. You got to pull them in. You got to touch their hearts in some way. Yes. And then, only then, can you teach them. That's what this does. That's what you do with a Step in STEM. You act as that hook. You pull them in. You get them into a place. You open up their ears and their minds, and then they can learn. That's the beautiful thing about what I saw at Drew Charter and what this program, a Step in STEM, endeavors to do and actually does do.
Definitely. We definitely look forward to having more of those events once COVID is over with. Brian, thank you so much for this time. I feel that I can have conversations like this with you for hours on hours. You always have so much great information for our listeners. We'll definitely have you back on our future episodes. Enjoy Boston. You guys get it done. The lab work that you have to do. I'll be checking in on you guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Candace. Really appreciate it. And you really look like a podcaster, I must say.
Woo!
Yes. You're on point. And thank you for having me.
All right, Brian, have a good day.
You too. Okay.
All right. So I want to hit on 2 points that Brian just mentioned. The first being the importance of teachers learning how to teach effectively. I feel that sometimes we as teachers can focus more on wanting to change the educational foundation that students currently have versus focusing on initially gaining their trust and gaining their respect, focusing on motivating and inspiring the students, and really just getting them interested, simply just getting them interested to want to hear what we have to say. And so that was so important. And I feel that ACP and A Step in STEM, what we aim to do is collect STEM champions with that same mindset, so that when they go out into the community, they really are a true extension and representation of what it is that and how we want to carry the message to our audiences. The second point, as I wrap up this first episode, I'd like to play for you all what it looks like for the A Step in STEM program to come to your community, to your school, to your city. And I'm going to start the video. It starts out with our mascot art, and then it shows our mobile lab where students are able to go inside and have a hands-on experience learning more about the building management systems that we would actually see inside buildings. This particular video took place at a STEM champion workshop, so you'll see more of our STEM champions. And the video continues with our local employers that we're partnering with. This particular event, we had Holder Construction, Johnson Controls, and the Siemens Foundation attend. We also had a DeKalb County TV partner with us to cover the event. And our interactive DJ, that is one of our actors, who's also my little brother, Justin. And I was interviewing some of the other actors, as well as Mr. Kroom, who's one of our special guest speakers, to tell us about the trainer that they build. And then the video goes to the party. This is where the party begins. We start our program off with our special guest speakers. So our president, Brian, was able to come and speak. And then we had, again, Mr. Kroom, who is the instructor of the Building Automation Systems course at GPTC. And then we begin with our musical. And the musical is played by people who are playing students, and they are in high school going on this journey to figure out what's the best career option for them. So they're describing the things that they enjoy, and then eventually through the guidance of their teacher, who is symbolizing a STEM champion, they eventually figure out that they do ultimately want a career in STEM. We end the performance with a panel discussion where we find out that these are not just actors, they also are in the building automation industry as technicians. And we have a coder. One of the actresses is also a coder, and then another actress works for IBM. And then we have another one of our actors who's currently studying at GPTC and he's getting his degree in building automation. And the most important thing at the end, we have our website. That's where you can learn more and you can sign up. And if you want us to come to your school and have the same experience, definitely we want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back.